Recently, I went over my Eurorack cases to give you an overview of the modules I use. Today, we're going to have a look at how I bring all these modules together in one big patch that I use for live shows. Of course, depending on what kind of show I plan to do, if it's more ambient or a beat-driven set, in example, the exact details of the patch change. But still, very often, the basic structure of it is very similar. So this is what the modular looks like when it's all patched up. And although I call this one patch, to get a grip on this wire mess, it's good to realize not everything is part of the same signal path. Everything contributes to the sounds I make on stage, but if I look at this, I see a lot of separate patches that are responsible for different elements of my performance. In example, there are two monophonic synth voices in here. There are different parts for percussive elements, a mixing section, and so on. So to understand what's going on here exactly, we're going to have a look at all these elements separately. This week, we're going to start off with the three melodic or tonal voices that are in my patch. Next week, we're going to have a look at the drum and sample playback section. And finally, we'll have a look at how I bring everything together during a live show. Here is a flowchart of the three melodic voices we're going to look at today. You can pause this if you like this sort of thing, and I might use this in the future to explain other aspects. For now though, I chose to use more recognizable animations to explain my patch. So it's more clear what modules I use exactly and how they are patched. So let's get started and dive right in. The first voice is a fairly straightforward monophonic synth. The audio chain is simple. I start with a waveform from the Dixie 2 oscillator, feed it to the dupe4wasp filter, add the Synth echo for extra character, and route it to the IntelliGel Linux VCA for volume control. From there, it's going to a unity mixer where it's mixed with the other melodic voices before it goes on to a small outboard mixer. To breathe live into this voice, I direct a simple attack decay envelope from the Quadra to the VCA for volume control. The same envelope is multed through an attenuverter and then to the wasp filter's cutoff. There's an LFO from peaks, I mostly use a smooth random voltage here, going to the filter cutoff as well. And I like to feed a slow triangle LFO through an attenuator to the Synth echo's delay time. Key here is that I have attenuators on all modulation inputs. This way I can really change the character of a sound for different tracks or different parts of a live set. And being able to invert the envelope going to the filter with the triad is also great. An example to create these pumping sidechain-like sounds. In this patch I mostly work with quantizers to create the melodies for the voices. I might go more into depth about this in another video with some tips, but here's the basic concept. I take a smooth random voltage from the dupe4A118 and feed it to the triad. Since this second input is not patched elsewhere, it is now mixed into the final output. And since the third channel has no input, I can mix a random voltage from channel 2 with an offset voltage from 3. That mix is going to the quantizer and then to the 1 volt per octave input on the Dixie 2. This is a nice way to create flexible random melodies. I can use the offset voltage to set the ground tone for a voice, turning it into a bass or a lead synth in example, and then I can choose how much the melody diverts from that ground tone by mixing in more or less of the random voltage. To trigger the quantizer and the envelope, I use the dupe4A162 clock divider. By picking different divisions, you can independently change the rate with which the envelope or changes in the melody are triggered. So this part of the live patch is a pretty flexible monophonic synth voice that can create its own melodies and can easily be pushed into different territories. Let's have a quick listen to how it sounds. The only thing I add here is a bit of external reverb. The structure of the second melodic voice is very similar to the first one, so I will go over it a little bit faster. Here the audio chain starts with the main and sub-outputs from the Erica Synth black wavetable oscillator. I mix them together with the Meleco Unity mixer, feed the results into the IntelliGel microfold wave folder, then the make noise multimode gate, then the dupe4 spring reverb, and finally the Linux VCA. From there again to the Unity mixer, and then the outboard mixer. The modulation here is more simple, with just an envelope from the Quadra to the Linux VCA as well as the filter, each with their own attenuator. And for the melody, I use the same trick as in the first voice. A random voltage mixed with an offset voltage in the second triad, into the second part of the quantizer, and to the 1 volt per octave input on the wavetable VCO. And again, the envelope and quantizer are triggered with divisions from the main clock. This voice has less modulation going on because I like more hands-on control to scope the sound. The combination of the wavetables and the microfold is very strong, and the multimode gate and the spring reverb add extra character to it. And if necessary, in a live patch like this, I always have at least one free LFO that I can easily patch to the wave shape on the VCO or fold input on the wave folder in example if I need some automated motion. Let's have a quick listen to some of the sounds of this voice as well. The third voice in this patch is not really melodic. I use it to create some rough or rhythmic noises and screaming sounds. Here's how that's set up. The audio path is just a square wave from the dupe for quad VCO, sent to an attenuator for volume control, then the unity mixer, and then the outboard mixer again. The fun is created by cross-modulating the oscillator's triangle output with another LFO at audio rates. The extra modulation I use here sometimes is a multed envelope from one of the other two voices through an attenuator and onto the second oscillator's CV input. This way I can get some tempo synced madness. Here is a quick listen. And those are the three melodic or rather tonal voices in my patch. The first two are very flexible. They can both function as bass and lead sounds, and they generate their own melodies. The third voice gives me some extra texture and expression when I need it. In this example patch I use the quantizer for melodies, but it's easy to hook up a sequencer like the Beatstep Pro or Korg SQ1 when I want to have more complex melodic parts prepared in advance. It's a choice to keep these voices pretty simple. I don't use separate envelopes for the filter and the VCA in example. That's because I want these voices to be direct, predictable and easy to control during live situations, especially if I improvise with them. Next week we'll have an in-depth look at how I create percussive elements, drums and use samples in this live patch. If you like this series, you can help me with a like and subscribe. If you want to help me making these videos, you can have a look at my Patreon, where it's possible to support me with a small donation on a monthly basis. Most important though, I hope you enjoyed this, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.